38F, always believed that a family was built on more than just blood. It was built on shared moments, on laughter, on the quiet promise to protect one another. For years, I had tried to build that for my daughter, Lily, and for my husband, Mark, and his 2 children. I thought we were succeeding. I thought we were creating a home where every child felt wanted, where every heart felt safe. The Florida sun was warm on our skin, the air thick with the smell of popcorn and the distant sound of cheerful music. It was supposed to be the perfect family vacation, the one that cemented us all together. But with 6 words, Mark shattered that illusion. He turned to face me, his expression flat and unreadable, standing in front of the glittering gates of the theme park. His children, Josh and Emily, were already vibrating with excitement beside him. My daughter Lily held my hand, her eyes wide with the same anticipation. That was when he said it. "I only bought tickets for my kids." The words hung in the humid air, sharp and cruel. For a moment, I was sure I had misheard him. The noise of the crowd, the music, something must have distorted his words. I looked at his face, searching for a sign that he was joking, that this was some terrible, misguided attempt at humor. But there was nothing. No smile, no flicker of warmth. Just a cold, hard finality. Josh and Emily looked at him, then at me, their own excitement dimming with confusion. They were teenagers, old enough to understand the weight of what their father had just said. Emily shuffled her feet, looking down at the pavement. Josh just stared, his mouth slightly open. But it was Lily who broke the silence. A small, wounded sound escaped her lips. Her hand, which had been clutching mine so tightly, went limp. I looked down at her. Her face, which had been so full of joy just a moment before, was crumbling. Her lower lip trembled and her big brown eyes filled with tears. She did not make a scene. She did not wail or scream. She just stood there, absorbing the blow, and a single tear traced a path down her cheek. It was a quiet, devastating heartbreak. She looked up at Mark, her expression a mixture of confusion and pain. She had called this man Dad for 5 years. He had tucked her in at night, helped her with her homework, and promised to always treat her as his own. And now, at the gates of a place meant for happiness, he was telling her she did not belong. He was telling her she was not his. "What did you say?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. I needed him to repeat it. I needed to be sure. He sighed and, annoyed, put upon sound. I said, "I bought tickets for Josh and Emily." He said, enunciating each word as if I were a child who did not understand. The budget was tight. I covered my kids. "The budget?" I repeated, the words feeling foreign in my mouth. We had a vacation budget. We had a joint account specifically for this trip. We had planned this for months, meticulously saving and allocating funds. There was no his or mine in that plan. It was for our family. For all of us. "Yes, the budget," he said, his voice clipped. "Things are more expensive than we thought. I made a choice." My daughter let out a soft sob, and I pulled her into my side, wrapping my arm around her shaking shoulders. She buried her face in my shirt, trying to hide her tears from the happy families streaming past us. I could feel her small body trembling with the force of her silent crying. This was not a choice about money. This was a statement. He had drawn a line in the sand, separating his children from mine. He had made her an outsider. In that moment, watching my child's heart break in the most public and humiliating way, something inside me shifted. The part of me that had always made excuses for him, that had always smoothed over his little slights and casual favoritism, went cold and still. The peacekeeper in me died. A different woman was born, one forged in the fire of her daughter's tears. I looked at Mark, truly looked at him, and for the first time, I saw him not as my husband, but as an adversary. "Don't worry, sweetie," I murmured to Lily, stroking her hair. "Mommy will handle this. We are going into that park, and you are going to have the best day ever." I kept my voice soft and steady for her, a calm anchor in her storm of hurt. But my eyes, when I lifted them to meet Mark's, were filled with a promise that this would not stand. He seemed taken aback by the look on my face. He expected me to argue, maybe to cry, to make a scene he could then blame on me for being overly emotional. He did not expect the quiet, focused rage that was now radiating from me. He shifted his weight, looking uncomfortable. "Well, if you want her to go, you can always buy her a ticket with your own money," he said, attempting to regain control of the situation. "I'm just being practical, Sarah." Practical. That was the word he chose to describe this act of casual cruelty. I did not say another word to him. I let go of Lily's hand for just a moment and walked to the nearby ticket window. I pulled out my wallet, my hands moving with a calm, deliberate purpose. I bought one child's ticket. The price was exorbitant, but it felt like the smallest price to pay to restore the light in my daughter's eyes. As I paid, I could feel Mark's gaze on my back. I am sure he thought he had won. He had asserted his dominance, put me and my daughter in our place, and I had simply complied. He had no idea what was coming. He could not comprehend that the money I was spending was not just for a ticket. It was an investment. It was the down payment on his destruction. I walked back to my daughter, the bright pink ticket in my hand. I knelt down in front of her, ignoring the crowd, ignoring Mark and his children. "Look, baby," I said softly, holding up the ticket. "This is for you. This is your key to a magical day." Lily looked up, her face tear-stained and blotchy. She took the ticket from my hand, her little fingers tracing the cheerful cartoon characters printed on it. A small, watery smile touched her lips. It was not the brilliant, carefree smile she had worn just 10 minutes ago, but it was a start. It was hope. "Really?" she whispered. "Really," I said, my voice firm. "Now, let's go ride that big castle ride you wanted to see." I stood up and took her hand. I looked at Josh and Emily, who were watching us with wide, uncertain eyes. I gave them a small, tight smile. This was not their fault. They were children, caught in the middle of their father's ugliness. But they were also his children, and the rift he had just created was now a chasm. Then I looked at Mark. I said nothing. I did not need to. My silence was louder than any argument could ever be. I turned and led my daughter toward the entrance gate, leaving him and his children to follow. The day was no longer about family bonding. It was about survival. It was about showing my daughter that no one, not even the man she called Dad, could diminish her worth. And it was about making sure Mark understood that he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. He had underestimated me. He had hurt my child. And for that, there would be a reckoning. The rest of the day was a study in forced cheerfulness. I poured all my energy into Lily, making sure she rode every ride she wanted, ate every sugary treat she pointed at, and posed for pictures with every costumed character we saw. I was determined to overwrite the morning's cruelty with an afternoon of pure, unadulterated joy. For her sake, I pretended that nothing was wrong. I smiled. I laughed. I even managed to be civil to Mark whenever he spoke to me, which was not often. He seemed to be keeping his distance, walking a few paces behind us with Josh and Emily. He looked sullen, like a man who had expected a fight and was disappointed not to get one. He probably thought my quick purchase of the ticket was an admission of defeat, that I had accepted his terms. He was a fool. Every smile I gave my daughter was genuine, but underneath it, a cold fury was building. With every spin of a teacup, with every cheerful song from a park parade, my resolve hardened. I watched him with his children. He was trying too hard, buying them oversized souvenirs, pointing out attractions with an exaggerated enthusiasm they did not seem to share. Josh and Emily were quiet, withdrawn. They would occasionally glance over at me and Lily, their expressions unreadable. They knew what their father had done was wrong. I could see it in the way they avoided my eyes, in the way they answered his questions with one-word responses. The unity of our blended family, however fragile it had been, was broken. He had not just excluded my daughter, he had isolated himself and his own children in the process. We were no longer a family of 5 on vacation. We were 2 separate units, moving through a fantasy world under a flag of truce that I had no intention of honoring for 1 second longer than necessary. That evening, back at the hotel, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Mark tried to act as if everything was normal. He suggested we all go out for a nice dinner. "My treat," he said, with a magnanimous air that made my stomach turn. "No, thank you," I said, my voice flat. "Lily and I are a little tired. We're just going to order a pizza and watch a movie in our room." Our hotel arrangement was a 2-bedroom suite. 1 room for him and the boys, 1 for me and Lily. It had seemed like a practical arrangement when we booked it. Now it felt like a blessing, a sanctuary. Mark's face tightened. "What's that supposed to mean? You're punishing me?" "I am not punishing you," I said calmly, meeting his gaze. "I am taking care of my daughter. She's had a long, emotional day." I emphasized the word emotional just enough for him to catch my meaning. "This is ridiculous, Sarah," he started, his voice rising. "It was just a ticket. You're blowing this way out of proportion." I looked at him, a cold smile touching my lips. "Was it just a ticket, Mark? Or was it a message?" He had no answer for that. He just scowled, turned on his heel, and herded his 2 quiet children out of the suite, slamming the door behind him. The sound echoed in the silent room. As soon as he was gone, Lily, who had been sitting on the bed pretending to read a book, looked up at me. "Are you and Mark fighting?" she asked, her voice small. I went and sat next to her, pulling her into a hug. "Sometimes grown-ups disagree, sweetie," I said, choosing my words carefully. "But you don't ever need to worry. No matter what happens, I will always be here for you. You and me were a team. Always." She nodded, leaning her head against my shoulder. We ordered the pizza and we watched a silly animated movie, and for a few hours we pretended to be a normal mother and daughter on a normal vacation. But after Lily had fallen asleep, her breath soft and even in the bed next to me, I pulled out my laptop. The time for pretending was over. It was time to find out the truth. Mark thought this was about 1 theme park ticket. He thought it was about his feelings versus mine. He was about to find out it was about facts. It was about numbers. It was about the trail of betrayal he had left in our shared bank account. I sat in the dim light of the hotel room, the glow of the screen illuminating my face. My heart was pounding in my chest, a steady, heavy rhythm of anger and dread. I typed in the web address for our bank, my fingers moving with a certainty I did not feel. I had to know. I had to see the full picture. For years, I had willfully ignored the small red flags. The way he would talk about his money versus our money, even though we both worked and contributed to the household. The way he would make large purchases for his kids without consulting me, then complain about the cost of Lily's dance lessons. I had told myself it was just an adjustment period, the normal friction of a blended family. I had been a fool. I had been willingly blind. I logged into our joint checking account. It was the account we used for all household bills, groceries, and family expenses, including this vacation. We had both transferred a significant amount of money into it over the past 6 months, specifically for this trip. The balance was lower than I expected. Much lower. I started scrolling through the recent transactions. Utility bills, mortgage payment, grocery store charges. It all looked normal at first. Then I saw it. A charge from 3 weeks ago. Magic World Theme Park's online ticketing. The amount was for 2 adult tickets and 2 child tickets. But we only had 3 children, and Mark had insisted on buying his own tickets separately, claiming he was using credit card points. So he had bought a ticket for himself, 1 for me, 1 for Josh, and 1 for Emily. He had deliberately, consciously left Lily out from the very beginning. This was not a last-minute, budget-related decision, as he had claimed. This was a premeditated act of exclusion. He had used our shared money I had earned and contributed, to buy tickets for himself and his chosen family, while planning all along to humiliate my daughter at the gate. The cold fury I had felt earlier began to burn hot. This was not just cruel, it was deceitful. It was a theft, not just of money, but of trust. I kept scrolling. My eyes scanned the lines of debits and credits, a knot of ice forming in my stomach. And then I saw something that made my breath catch in my throat. A series of large transfers. 3 of them, spaced a week apart, all made in the last month. Each transfer was for several $1,000s. They were all going to the same place, an external account I did not recognize. The memo for each transfer was chillingly simple. Savings. Savings? We did not have another savings account. Our main savings, the money we were putting away for a down payment on a bigger house, was in a completely different joint account at another bank. My hands started to shake. I quickly opened a new tab and navigated to the website of our other bank. I logged into our joint savings account, the one that held our future, the one we had both painstakingly contributed to for years. The balance was 0. It was all gone. Every single penny. He had drained it. He had systematically transferred our entire life savings into a secret account that was, I had no doubt, in his name only. The theme park ticket was not the betrayal. It was the symptom. It was the tell, the small, arrogant gesture of a man who thought he had already won. He had been financially gutting our family for weeks, all while smiling at me over dinner, all while talking about our future and our plans. This vacation, this trip that was supposed to bring us together, was a lie. It was a cover. It was the final act before he dropped the curtain on our marriage, leaving me and Lily with nothing. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. I leaned back in my chair, the laptop feeling heavy on my lap. I thought about him out there, at dinner with his kids, probably feeling smug and self-satisfied. He thought he had all the power. He thought he held all the cards. He had no idea that I was sitting here in the dark, looking at his entire hand. The initial shock began to recede, replaced by a clarity so sharp it felt like a shard of ice in my chest. I was not a victim. I would not be a victim. He had started a war, and he had made a critical error. He had shown his hand too early, and he had hurt my child, which meant there was no line I would not cross to protect her. I took a deep breath. Then another. I needed to be smart. I needed to be strategic. Flying off the handle now would do me no good. I needed more information. I needed proof. I went back to the joint checking account page. I looked at the details of the transfers to the unknown account. It listed the name of the receiving bank. It was a smaller, online-only bank, one I had never heard of. It also listed the account number. I took a screenshot of everything. The theme park ticket purchase, the 3 large transfers, the empty savings account. I saved the images to a secure cloud drive, then emailed them to a private email address he knew nothing about. I was creating a paper trail, an arsenal of evidence. My mind was racing, connecting dots I had previously refused to see. The sudden business trips he had taken over the past few months, the way he had become more secretive with his phone, the vague, non-committal answers he would give when I asked about our long-term financial goals. It was all part of his plan, a plan to abandon his family and to make sure he walked away with everything. I thought about what to do next. I could confront him right now. I could scream and yell and throw the evidence in his face. But what would that accomplish? He would lie. He would gaslight me. He would turn it around and make it my fault for snooping. He would play the victim, and in the chaos, he might find a way to cover his tracks even better. No, a direct confrontation was not the right move. Not yet. I needed to be colder, more calculated. I needed to let him think he was still in control. I needed to let him walk deeper into the trap he had set for me. I closed the laptop. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the glittering lights of the resort. It all looked so perfect from up here, a world of manufactured happiness. Just like my marriage. I had to get through the rest of this vacation. I had to smile and pretend for 3 more days for Lily's sake. But every moment of that charade would be spent planning. Every fake smile would be a sharpening of the knife. He had declared war on me and my daughter. He just did not know that I had already accepted his surrender. The next morning, I was awake before the sun. Lily was still sleeping peacefully, a small smile on her face. For a moment, I just watched her, my heart aching with a fierce, protective love. She was the reason for all of this. She was my why. I would not let his darkness touch her light. I slipped out of bed and got dressed quietly. I needed to think, to make a plan. I grabbed my phone and a hotel notepad and went down to the lobby coffee shop. The resort was quiet at this hour, a gentle hum of cleaning crews and early risers. I ordered a black coffee and sat at a small table in the corner. I opened the notepad and started to write. Step 1. Gather more information. I had the bank statements, but I needed context. I needed to understand his motive beyond simple greed. Was there someone else? Was his ex-wife involved? Step 2. Secure legal advice. I could not do this alone. I had a friend from college, Jessica, who was a brilliant family law attorney. I needed to talk to her, to understand my rights and my options. Step 3. Protect myself and Lily. This was the most important. I needed to figure out how to shield us from the fallout that was inevitably coming. I took out my phone and sent a text to Jessica. Hey, Jess. I know it's early and I'm on vacation, but I have an urgent situation. Can you talk for a few minutes this morning? It's about Mark. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was Jessica. Of course. Everything okay? Call me. I took a deep breath and walked outside to the patio, where I would have more privacy. I dialed her number. Sarah? What's going on? Jessica's voice was sharp with concern. I started to talk. I told her everything. The theme park ticket, Lily's tears, the late-night investigation, the empty savings account, the secret bank transfers. As I spoke, the words tumbled out, a torrent of betrayal and hurt. Saying it all out loud made it even more real, more horrifying. Jessica listened patiently, not interrupting once. When I was finished, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. Jess, are you there? I asked, my voice trembling slightly. I'm here, she said, her voice now cold and professional. And I am so sorry you are going through this, Sarah. But I am also incredibly glad you called me. What he is doing is not just immoral, it's illegal. This is called dissipation of marital assets. And we are going to nail him to the wall for it. Hearing her say that, hearing the confidence in her voice was like a balm to my frayed nerves. I was not crazy. I was not overreacting. This was real, and there was something I could do about it. What do I do? I asked. First, you do nothing, she said. Do not confront him. Do not let him know you know anything. You said you have 3 more days of this vacation? Yes, I confirmed. Okay, you are going to be the best actress of your life, she instructed. You are going to be pleasant. You are going to be civil. You are going to let him think everything is fine, that you've gotten over the ticket incident. The more comfortable he is, the more mistakes he's likely to make. This was going to be hard. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to confront him, to demand answers. But I trusted Jessica. Okay, I said. I can do that. What else? As soon as you get home, you are coming straight to my office, she said. In the meantime, keep gathering information, but do it safely. Do not get caught. If you can get access to his personal email or phone, look for communication about that secret account. Look for any mention of his plans. But Sarah, and I mean this, only if you can do it without him finding out. Your safety and Lily's is the top priority. We talked for another 20 minutes. She laid out the first steps of what would become our legal strategy. Freezing assets, filing for divorce, subpoenaing records. By the time we hung up, I felt a sense of purpose I had not felt in years. The fear and hurt were still there, but they were now overshadowed by a cold, clear resolve. I went back to the hotel room. Mark and his kids were awake. He was in the small kitchenette area, making coffee, acting as if nothing had happened yesterday. Morning, he said, not quite meeting my eyes. Good morning, I replied, my voice even and calm. I went over and started making a bowl of cereal for Lily, who was now awake and watching cartoons on the television. My performance had begun. Mark seemed relieved by my calm demeanor. So, what's the plan for today? He asked, trying to sound cheerful. I was thinking we could go to the water park. That sounds like a great idea, I said, turning to him with a small, polite smile. The kids would love that. I made sure to say the kids, including all three of them. A subtle test. He nodded, looking pleased. Great, I'll go online and get the tickets. He paused, then added, for everyone this time. He said it like he was doing me a great favor, like he was being a magnanimous and forgiving husband. I just smiled. Thank you, Mark. That's very thoughtful. He had no idea that I knew he would be using our joint money. The little that was left of it to buy those tickets. He had no idea that I was documenting every single transaction. He thought he was smoothing things over. In reality, he was just digging his own grave a little bit deeper. The day at the water park was a surreal experience. I kept up the facade, laughing as Lily splashed me, going on the lazy river with Emily, even making small talk with Mark. But my mind was 1,000 miles away, replaying my conversation with Jessica, going over the bank statements in my head. I was living in two realities at once: the sunny, happy family vacation and the dark, cold truth of my husband's betrayal. That night, I had my chance. Mark decided to take Josh and Emily to a late-night movie at the resort cinema. He invited me and Lily, but I politely declined, saying Lily had gotten too much sun and needed an early night. He did not push it. He was probably glad to have some quality time with his own kids. As soon as they were gone and Lily was safely asleep, I went to work. His laptop was on the desk in our room. He was careless with his security, using the same simple password for everything. I had learned it years ago. I held my breath and typed it in. It worked. I was in. I went straight for his email. I did not have much time. I started searching for the name of the online bank where he had stashed our savings. A handful of emails popped up. Account opening confirmations, monthly statements. And then I found it. The smoking gun. It was an email thread between him and his sister, Karen. The subject line was the exit plan. My blood ran cold. I clicked on it. The emails went back for months. In them, Mark laid out his entire strategy. He complained about me, calling me a financial drain. He talked about Lily as her kid, a burden he was tired of carrying. He detailed his plan to systematically move all of our joint assets into his own name, to leave me with the mortgage and the bills while he started a new life. By the time she figures it out, it will be too late, he had written in one email. The vacation is the perfect cover. We'll get back. I'll tell her it's over and I'll be gone. She won't have a leg to stand on. His sister's replies were even more sickening. She encouraged him every step of the way. She called me names. She gave him advice on how to hide the money more effectively. Make sure you leave her just enough in the checking account to avoid suspicion until you're ready to pull the plug, Karen had written. The theme park thing is a nice touch, a little power play to remind her who's in charge. A power play. That's what it was. A deliberate, calculated act of cruelty designed to humiliate me and my daughter. It was not just about money. It was about control. It was about breaking my spirit before he delivered the final blow. I felt a surge of pure, unadulterated rage, but I pushed it down. Rage was a luxury I could not afford right now. I needed to be cold. I needed to be methodical. I forwarded the entire email thread to my secret email address. Then I went into his sent folder and deleted the forwarded message. I cleared his browser history. I covered my tracks perfectly. When he came back to the room later that night, humming a tune from the movie, I was in bed, pretending to be asleep. He had no idea that I had just armed myself with the weapon that would not only save me, but would utterly destroy him. The final day of our vacation felt like a scene from a movie where only I knew the ending. The sun was shining, The sky was a brilliant blue, but all I could see was the storm that was about to break. Mark was in a good mood. He was cheerful, almost giddy. He probably thought he had successfully navigated the minor bump in the road and that his plan was still on track. He was humming as he packed his suitcase, occasionally making comments about how great it would be to get home. "I've got a lot of exciting things planned for the fall," he said, giving me a knowing look. "Big changes are coming." "Oh, you have no idea," I thought to myself. I played my part, smiling and nodding, helping Lily pack her small suitcase with the souvenirs I had bought her. Outwardly, I was the dutiful wife, wrapping up a family trip. Inwardly, I was a general on the eve of battle, reviewing my strategy, steeling myself for what was to come. The flight home was tense. The forced pleasantries had worn thin, and a heavy silence settled over our row. Mark tried to make conversation a few times, but my short, noncommittal answers eventually made him give up. He put on his headphones and closed his eyes, a small, smug smile on his face. He was probably dreaming of his new life, the one he had stolen from us. I spent the flight watching a movie with Lily, her head resting on my shoulder. Every so often, I would look over at my husband, at the man I had once loved and trusted, and I felt nothing but a cold, hard resolve. He was a stranger to me now. A thief who had broken into my house and tried to steal my future. And thieves needed to be brought to justice. As soon as we landed, I put the next phase of my plan into action. While we were waiting for our luggage, I made a quick phone call. "He's here," I said quietly into the phone. "We're at baggage claim 3. "Understood." A calm, professional voice on the other end replied. "We're in position." I hung up just as our suitcases appeared on the carousel. We gathered our things and headed for the exit, Mark striding ahead with Josh and Emily, me and Lily following a few paces behind. As we stepped out into the arrivals area, a man in a simple suit approached us. "Mark Robinson?" he asked. Mark stopped, looking surprised. "Yes?" The man handed him a thick manila envelope. "You've been served." Mark stared at the envelope in his hand as if it were a venomous snake. He looked from the envelope to the man, who had already turned and was walking away, then to me. His face was a mask of confusion and disbelief. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice low and dangerous. "I think you know what it is," I said, my voice steady. I pulled Lily a little closer to my side. He tore open the envelope. His eyes scanned the first page of the documents inside. I saw the color drain from his face. He looked up at me, his eyes wide with shock and a dawning, horrified understanding. "Divorce papers? Are you kidding me? And what is this emergency motion to freeze assets?" "It's exactly what it sounds like," I said, my voice as cold as ice. "It means that secret bank account you've been stashing our life savings in? The one you were planning to run away with after you left me and my daughter with nothing? It's frozen. You can't touch a single penny." His jaw dropped. He was speechless. He looked around at the people bustling past us, at his own children who were watching this exchange with wide, fearful eyes. He was completely and utterly blindsided. This was not part of his plan. How did you know?" he stammered. "You're not as smart as you think you are, Mark," I said. "You left a trail, and I followed it." I looked him dead in the eye. "You made a big mistake. You hurt my daughter. You tried to ruin our lives. Now you're going to see what it feels like to have everything taken away from you." He started to sputter, to protest, to deny, but the words died in his throat. He knew he was caught. The legal documents in his hand were proof of that. The smug, confident man from the airplane was gone, replaced by a cornered, desperate animal. "You can't do this," he whispered, his voice shaking with a mixture of rage and fear. "I already have," I replied. I turned to Josh and Emily. "Your father and I are getting a divorce. I am very sorry that you have to see this, but you deserve to know the truth. He has been stealing money from our family." Josh looked at his father, his expression hardening. Emily just started to cry. "I'm taking Lily home with me now," I said to Mark, my voice leaving no room for argument. "My lawyer will be in touch with yours, if you even have one." With that, I turned my back on him. I took Lily's hand and walked towards the taxi stand, not looking back. I could hear him start to yell my name, his voice cracking with desperation, but I did not stop. The battle had been joined, and the first victory was mine. In the taxi on the way home, Lily was quiet. She just held my hand and stared out the window. I knew she was scared and confused, and my heart ached for her. "Mommy," she said finally, her voice small. "What's going to happen?" I pulled her into a hug, kissing the top of her head. "Everything is going to be different, sweetie," I said honestly. "But it's going to be okay. Better than okay. From now on, it's just you and me. And I promise you, I will spend the rest of my life making sure you are safe and happy and loved. No one will ever make you feel like you don't belong again." She looked up at me, her big eyes searching my face. She saw the truth there, the unwavering promise. She gave me a small, brave smile and laid her head on my shoulder. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe again. The war was far from over, but I knew with absolute certainty that we were going to win. The days that followed were a blur of phone calls, meetings, and paperwork. I met with Jessica at her office the very next morning. I laid out all my evidence: the bank statements, the screenshots, the emails between Mark and his sister. Jessica's eyes grew wider with each document I showed her. "This is a slam dunk, Sarah," she said, tapping a perfectly manicured nail on the printout of the email thread. "This isn't just dissipation of assets. This is conspiracy to commit fraud. His sister is involved. This is going to get very, very ugly for them." She explained the legal process in clear, simple terms. The emergency freeze on his secret account would hold. We would file a motion to have all the stolen funds returned to the marital estate immediately. We would subpoena his work records, his phone records, his sister's records. We would leave no stone unturned. "He's going to fight back," Jessica warned me. "He'll lie. He'll try to paint you as a vindictive, unstable woman. He'll try to use the kids against you. You need to be prepared for that." "I'm prepared," I said, my voice steady. "He has no idea what I'm capable of when it comes to protecting my daughter." Mark, for his part, seemed to be in a state of shock. He hired a lawyer, a flashy, aggressive man who immediately started sending threatening letters. They accused me of illegal surveillance, of theft of personal documents, of parental alienation. Jessica swatted them away like flies. "Standard bully tactics," she told me. "They have nothing, so they're trying to scare you. Don't let them." The first real confrontation came during the initial custody hearing. Mark was trying to get temporary primary custody of Josh and Emily, claiming I was an unfit step-parent who was poisoning them against him. We sat on opposite sides of a large conference table in his lawyer's office, the air thick with hostility. "My client is a dedicated father who has been blindsided by his wife's erratic and malicious behavior," his lawyer began, his voice smooth and practiced. "She has hacked into his personal accounts, stolen his private correspondence, and is attempting to extort him financially." I listened calmly, my hands folded in my lap. When it was Jessica's turn to speak, she was a study in cool, professional precision. "My client, Ms. Robinson, has not been erratic or malicious," she said, her voice cutting through the bluster. "She has been a victim of a calculated, premeditated campaign of financial and emotional abuse, orchestrated by Mr. Robinson and his sister Karen." She then proceeded to lay out the facts, one by one. She presented the bank statements showing the secret transfers. She presented the theme park ticket receipt from our joint account, the one that excluded my daughter. And then she dropped the bomb. "Furthermore, we have evidence of Mr. Robinson's intent," she said, sliding a copy of the exit plan emails across the table. In his own words, he details his plan to pull the plug on his marriage, leaving my client and her child with nothing after what he refers to as a cover vacation. Mark's lawyer picked up the papers. As he read, his smug expression slowly faded, replaced by a look of alarm. He looked over at Mark, who was staring at the table, his face pale. He had thought those emails were his private secret. He had never imagined they would see the light of day in a lawyer's office. This is inadmissible, he stammered, shuffling the papers. It was obtained illegally. Was it? Jessica asked, raising an eyebrow. Or was it found on a family computer, used by all members of the household with no password protection to speak of? We can argue about that in front of a judge if you'd like. I'm sure he or she would be very interested to read about your client's power play at the theme park. Mark's lawyer was silent. He knew he was beaten. The hearing ended with a temporary agreement that was a complete victory for me. I was granted temporary exclusive use of the marital home. Mark was ordered to stay away. Custody of Josh and Emily would be split 50-50 for now, pending a full evaluation. And most importantly, the freeze on the secret account was upheld, with all funds to be transferred to a neutral third-party escrow account until the divorce was finalized. I walked out of that office feeling 10 feet tall. Mark stayed behind, his head in his hands. His plan was not just failing, it was spectacularly backfiring. A few days later, I got a phone call from a number I did not recognize. It was Karen, Mark's sister. Her voice was dripping with venom. I don't know what kind of lies you've been telling, but you need to stop this. She shrieked into the phone. You are destroying my brother. You are a greedy, evil woman. Hello, Karen, I said, my voice calm. I'm not telling any lies. I'm just telling the truth. The truth that you helped your brother plan to defraud me and abandon his family. There was a stunned silence on the other end. I don't know what you're talking about, she sputtered. Oh, I think you do, I said. I have the emails, Karen. The ones where you call me names. The ones where you give him advice on how to hide money. The ones where you call his cruelty to a 10-year-old girl a nice touch. My lawyer seems to think that makes you an active participant in a conspiracy. She's very interested in deposing you under oath. The silence that followed was even longer. I could almost hear the gears turning in her head as she realized the depth of the trouble she was in. Stay away from my family, she finally whispered, her voice stripped of all its earlier bravado. She sounded scared. That is exactly what I plan to do, I said. And I hung up the phone. The enabler had been neutralized. She knew that I had her dead to rights, and that if she continued to interfere, I would not hesitate to drag her into the legal mess right alongside her brother. The next few weeks were a strange new kind of normal. Lily and I settled into a quiet routine in our house. Without Mark's tense, brooding presence, the entire atmosphere of the home lifted. It was calmer, happier. We ate dinner together every night, talking and laughing. We watched movies cuddled up on the couch. We were healing. Josh and Emily came over on their scheduled days. It was awkward at first. They were quiet and withdrawn, clearly torn between their parents. I never once spoke ill of their father in front of them. I simply provided them with a stable, calm environment. I made them their favorite meals. I helped them with their homework. I treated them with the same kindness and respect I always had. Slowly, they began to open up. One evening, as I was helping Emily with the school project, she looked up at me, her eyes filled with tears. Is it true? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. What you said at the airport? Did my dad really try to take all the money? I sat down next to her, my heart going out to her. Yes, sweetie, I said gently. It's true. Your dad made some very bad choices. He told us you were lying, she said, wiping her eyes. He said you were just angry and trying to hurt him. I know he did, I said. And I'm not angry anymore. I'm just trying to protect myself and Lily. And you and Josh, too. What your dad did was not fair to any of us. She nodded, seeming to accept this. A few days later, Josh approached me. He was a stoic, quiet boy, much like his father in appearance, but I was beginning to see a sensitivity in him that Mark lacked. I read the emails, he said, his voice low. He did not look at me. Dad left his laptop open. I saw them. My heart sank. I never wanted the children to see the ugly details of their father's betrayal. I'm so sorry you had to see that, Josh, I said softly. He just shrugged, but his eyes were glistening. The stuff he said about you, and about Lily, and what he did at the theme park. He knew what he was doing the whole time. He finally looked at me, his expression a mixture of anger and shame. It was wrong. What he did was wrong. It was a breakthrough. The children were seeing the truth for themselves. Mark's lies and manipulations were no longer working on them. He was losing them, not because of anything I was doing, but because of his own actions. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place about a month later. Jessica called me, her voice buzzing with excitement. "You are not going to believe this," she said. "We got his work records. Guess what our friend Mark has been up to?" I'm almost afraid to ask, I said. "He's been having an affair," she said, "with a coworker for over a year. And get this, he was using the joint credit card to take her on lavish dates, buy her expensive gifts, even took her on a business trip to a resort in the Caribbean. It was all there, in black and white. The hotel charges, the jewelry store receipts, the fancy restaurant bills, all paid for with our family's money. The secret bank account was not just for his new life. It was to fund his secret life. He was planning on leaving you for her," Jessica explained. "The money he was stealing was going to be their fresh start. You and the kids were just baggage he was planning to drop." Strangely, I did not feel hurt by the news of the affair. My marriage had been over for a long time. I just had not realized it. What I felt was validation, and a new, even stronger wave of righteous anger. He had not just betrayed me as a wife. He had betrayed our entire family. He had stolen from his own children to impress another woman. "This changes everything," Jessica said, her voice grimly satisfied. "In a fault state like ours, proof of adultery and financial misconduct on this scale gives us all the leverage. We can go for a much larger settlement. We can make him pay for every single thing he has done." The final settlement meeting was a week later. Mark was there with his lawyer. He looked terrible. He had lost weight. There were dark circles under his eyes, and he looked like a man who had not slept in weeks. He knew what we had. His lawyer had probably advised him that fighting was futile. Jessica laid out our terms. They were brutal, but they were fair. I would get the house. I would get a majority of the liquid assets, including every penny he had stolen and moved to his secret account. I would get significant alimony for a period of 10 years. He would, of course, be responsible for child support for Josh and Emily. His lawyer tried to argue, to negotiate, but Jessica shut him down at every turn. "Your client has two choices," she said, her voice like steel. "He can sign this agreement today, and we can end this quietly. Or we can go to court. And in open court, we will present the emails. We will present the evidence of his affair, including the testimony of his mistress, who I'm sure will be thrilled to have her name dragged through the mud. We will present the evidence of his financial fraud. He will be publicly humiliated. He will likely lose his job. And a judge will give my client everything I'm asking for anyway. So, what's it going to be?" Mark looked at his lawyer, then at me. There was no fight left in his eyes, only defeat. He picked up the pen, his hand shaking, and he signed the papers. He signed away the house he had tried to keep, the money he had tried to steal, and the future he had so carefully planned. As he pushed the papers across the table, his eyes met mine. He was looking for something. Remorse? Pity? I gave him nothing. I just looked back at him, my expression unreadable. I felt no satisfaction in his defeat, no joy in his misery. All I felt was a profound sense of relief. The weight that I had been carrying for years was finally lifted. The charade was over, the truth was out, and I was free. I stood up and shook Jessica's hand. "Thank you," I said, my voice thick with emotion. For everything. You did this, Sarah, she said, squeezing my hand. You were strong when you needed to be. You fought for yourself and your daughter. Never forget that. I walked out of that building and into the bright afternoon sun, feeling like a different person. The woman who had stood crying at the gates of a theme park just a few months ago was gone. In her place was a woman who knew her own worth, a woman who had faced down betrayal and come out stronger on the other side. A few weeks later, Mark moved out of the house. I helped Josh and Emily pack their things for the days they would be with him at his new, much smaller apartment. It was a sad, quiet process. I knew this was hard on them, and I did my best to be supportive. You can call me anytime, I told them, hugging them both tightly at the door. This is still your home. You are always welcome here. Emily hugged me back fiercely. I'd rather stay here with you, she whispered. Me too, Josh added, his voice low. You have to spend time with your dad, I said gently. He's still your father, and he loves you. But know that I love you too, and I will always be here for you. After they left, the house was quiet. Too quiet. For the first time, the reality of my new life as a single mother hit me. It was daunting, but it was also filled with a sense of possibility. The house was mine. My future was mine. I could build a new life for me and Lily, one based on honesty and love, not lies and secrets. The first thing I did was redecorate Lily's room. We painted the walls her favorite shade of lavender. We bought a new bedspread with unicorns on it. We hung fairy lights around her window. We made it her own magical kingdom, a safe haven where no one could ever hurt her. One evening, as I was tucking her into her newly decorated bed, she looked up at me with a serious expression. Mommy, she said, are we poor now? I was taken aback by the question. No, sweetie, why would you think that? Because Mark always said you and me cost too much money, she said, her voice small. My heart broke a little. I sat on the edge of her bed and took her hand. Listen to me very carefully, I said, looking her right in the eyes. You are not a cost. You are a gift. You are the most precious thing in the entire world. And we are not poor. We have everything we need. We have this beautiful house, we have food to eat, and most importantly, we have each other. We are the richest people in the world. She smiled, a real, genuine smile that lit up her whole face. I love you, Mommy. I love you more, baby, I said, kissing her forehead. A few months passed. Life settled into a new rhythm. Mark's sister Karen never called again. I heard through the grapevine that she and Mark had had a massive falling out after she was subpoenaed by my lawyer. She blamed him for dragging her into his mess. His carefully constructed world was continuing to crumble. He had lost his wife, his home, and now, the sister who had been his co-conspirator. His relationship with Josh and Emily was strained as well. They came back from their weekends at his apartment looking sad and stressed. They told me he was always angry, always complaining about how unfair his life was. He was trying to poison them against me, but it was not working. They had seen the truth with their own eyes. They knew who was stable and who was not. One day, I was going through some old boxes in the garage, getting ready for a donation run. In the bottom of one box, I found a stack of brochures and pamphlets. They were from the theme park in Florida. My hand trembled slightly as I picked one up. I saw the picture of the magical castle on the front, and for a moment, I was transported back to that awful morning. The humiliation, the hurt, Lily's tear-streaked face. But then, a different feeling washed over me. It was not anger or sadness. It was determination. I went inside and sat down at my computer. I booked 2 plane tickets to Orlando. I booked a room at the nicest resort hotel, right on the park grounds. And I bought 2 top-tier park hopper passes, the kind that let you go anywhere. Do anything, with no restrictions. A week later, Lily and I were standing in front of those same glittering gates. The sun was just as warm, the air just as thick with the smell of popcorn. but this time, everything was different. "Are you ready for the best day ever?" I asked, smiling down at her. Her face was pure, unadulterated joy. "Yes," she squealed, jumping up and down. We walked through the gates and it felt like a triumph. We spent the day doing everything we wanted. We rode the castle ride 3 times in a row. We met every single princess. We ate ice cream for lunch. In the afternoon, we went to one of the giant souvenir shops. "You can have anything you want," I told her. "Anything at all." Her eyes went wide. She walked through the aisles, her fingers gently touching the stuffed animals and sparkling tiaras. Finally, she picked up the biggest, most ridiculously oversized stuffed unicorn in the entire store. It was almost as big as she was. "This one," she said, her voice filled with awe. "It's perfect," I said. As I stood at the counter, paying for the unicorn with my own debit card, linked to my own bank account, filled with the money I had fought for and won, I felt a profound sense of peace. This was not about revenge. It was about reclamation. It was about taking a place of pain and turning it into a place of joy. It was about showing my daughter that our happiness did not depend on anyone else. We could build it ourselves. That evening, we stayed for the fireworks show. We found a perfect spot right in front of the castle. As the first firework exploded in the sky, a shower of glittering gold, Lily snuggled up next to me. Her new unicorn clutched in her arms. "This is the best day of my whole life," she whispered, her eyes reflecting the dazzling colors. "Mine too, baby," I whispered back, my arm wrapped tightly around her. "Mine too." I thought about Mark then. I pictured him in his sad little apartment, surrounded by the wreckage of his own making. He had tried to teach my daughter that she was worth less than his own children. He had tried to show her that she did not belong in his world. But in the end, all he had done was remove himself from ours. He had thought he was taking everything, but he had left us with the only things that truly mattered: each other, our integrity, and our freedom. He wanted to teach my daughter her place. Instead, he paid for her to see the world without him. And as I watched the fireworks light up the night sky, with my beautiful, happy daughter beside me, I knew that this was a world that was infinitely brighter. He had made a choice that day at the theme park, a choice born of cruelty and greed. And I had made my own choice. I had chosen to fight. I had chosen to protect my child. I had chosen to build a new life from the ashes of the old one. And that was a choice I would never regret. The fallout from the divorce continued to ripple through our lives in unexpected ways. A few weeks after our trip, I received a call from Mark's ex-wife, Lisa. We had never been close, our interactions limited to polite but brief exchanges during child drop-offs. Her voice on the phone was hesitant. "Sarah, it's Lisa," she said. "I hope this isn't a bad time." "Not at all, Lisa. Is everything okay?" I asked, surprised to hear from her. I just wanted to call and say, I'm sorry," she said, the words coming out in a rush. "For what Mark put you through. Josh and Emily told me everything. The money, the affair, the way he treated your daughter. It's monstrous." I was touched by her call. "Thank you, Lisa. That means a lot. It's just," she continued, her voice gaining strength. "He did the same thing to me. Not the exact same way, but the pattern is there. The financial control. The lies. The way he makes you feel small so he can feel big. I fought him for years and it was exhausting. I'm just so impressed with how you handled it. You didn't let him walk all over you." We talked for almost an hour. We shared stories, compared notes on his manipulative tactics. It was a strangely cathartic conversation. We were two women from different chapters of the same man's life, finding common ground in our shared experience of his toxicity. By the end of the call, we had forged an unlikely alliance. We agreed to support each other, to make sure Josh and Emily had a united front of sane, stable parenting to counteract whatever narrative their father was spinning. This new friendship was an unexpected gift, another silver lining in the dark cloud of the divorce. Meanwhile, Mark's life continued its downward spiral. His affair partner, upon being contacted by Jessica's office for a deposition, promptly ended their relationship. She was a career-focused woman and had no interest in being publicly associated with such a messy and scandalous divorce. Mark had not only lost his wife and family, he had lost his mistress too. He was truly alone. At work, rumors began to circulate. While the details of the divorce were private, the fact that it was acrimonious and involved accusations of financial misconduct was enough to damage his reputation. He worked in finance, an industry built on trust. He was passed over for a promotion he had been expecting. His colleagues became distant. His arrogance and self-assurance, which had once been seen as confidence, were now viewed as a liability. He was becoming a pariah in his own professional world. I saw him once, a few months later, at a grocery store. I was in the produce aisle with Lily, and I saw him at the far end near the dairy case. He looked gaunt and tired. His clothes were rumpled, and he had an air of defeat about him. He saw me at the same moment I saw him. Our eyes met across the length of the aisle. For a second, I saw a flicker of something in his expression. Regret, perhaps, or shame. But it was quickly replaced by his familiar scowl of resentment. He turned his cart abruptly and disappeared down another aisle, a man running from his own reflection. I felt a strange pang of something that was not quite pity, but a sad acknowledgement of the waste. He had had a family, a beautiful home, a comfortable life. He had thrown it all away for greed and ego. Lily tugged on my sleeve. "Mommy, can we get strawberries?" she asked, oblivious to the silent drama that had just played out. "Of course, sweetie," I said, my focus snapping back to her, to what was real and important. "Let's get the biggest ones we can find." Life moved on. The seasons changed. The final divorce decree came in the mail. A thick packet of paper that officially ended one chapter of my life and began another. I signed the last of the documents, the ones that transferred the house title solely into my name. It felt momentous. This house was no longer a marital home filled with ghosts and bad memories. It was my home, my sanctuary. Josh and Emily continued to thrive. They spent their court-ordered time with their father, but it was clear where they considered their true home to be. They often called me on the evenings they were with him, just to talk, to ask for help with homework, or to tell me about their day. I became their constant, their stable port in the storm of their father's chaotic life. One afternoon, Josh, who was now 16 and getting his driver's license, asked if he could talk to me alone. We sat at the kitchen table, and he looked at me with a maturity that seemed beyond his years. "I just want to thank you," he said, his voice earnest. "For everything. For not kicking us out. For not hating us because of what Dad did." "Oh, Josh," I said, my heart swelling. "I would never do that. None of this was your fault. You and Emily are family to me. Always." "I know," he said. "And I want you to know that I'm saving up my money from my part-time job. When Lily's birthday comes around, I want to buy her a really great present. To make up for, you know." Tears welled in my eyes. This kind, thoughtful young man was the antithesis of his father. He understood what it meant to be family, what it meant to show you care. "You don't have to do that," I said. But that is the kindest thought I have ever heard. The first anniversary of the disastrous vacation approached. I had been dreading it a little, worried it would bring back all the pain and anger. But as the date drew closer, I felt surprisingly calm. It no longer had power over me. It was just a date on a calendar, a memory of a battle that had been fought and won. On the evening of the anniversary, I was in the kitchen making dinner. Lily was at the table drawing, and Josh and Emily were in the living room, helping each other with homework. The house was filled with the sounds of normal, happy family life. My phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. I opened it. It was a picture of a theme park ticket. Underneath it was a short message. "Thinking of you. You ruined my life." It was from Mark. For a moment, I felt a flash of the old anger. The audacity of him to still be playing the victim after everything he had done. But then I looked around my kitchen. I saw my beautiful daughter humming to herself as she colored. I saw my wonderful stepchildren working together peacefully. I saw the warm, safe home I had built for us. He had not ruined my life. He had liberated it. I deleted the message. I did not reply. He was a ghost from a past life, a sad, bitter man trying to haunt a house he no longer had a key to. He did not deserve a response. He did not deserve another second of my time or my energy. Later that night, after the kids were in bed, I sat on the back porch with a cup of tea looking up at the stars. I thought about the woman I had been a year ago, so desperate to keep the peace, so willing to ignore the truth in front of her. I was grateful for the painful lesson. It had taught me my own strength. It had shown me that I was capable of not just surviving, but of thriving on my own terms. The divorce had been a fire, and it had burned away everything that was not real, everything that was not true. What was left was smaller, perhaps, but it was stronger. It was authentic. It was a family built not on a legal document, but on love, respect, and the quiet promise to protect one another. A promise I had kept and would keep for the rest of my days. The quiet satisfaction of that thought was better than any revenge. It was peace. And it was all mine. The following year was one of rebuilding and growth. I focused on my career, earning a promotion at my job that came with a significant raise. The financial security was empowering, a tangible result of my hard work and independence. Lily flourished in the stable environment. Her confidence grew, and the shadows of that painful vacation faded completely, replaced by the bright light of a happy, secure childhood. Our blended, broken, and now reformed family found its own unique rhythm. Lisa and I became genuine friends, supporting each other through the challenges of co-parenting with a difficult ex. Josh got his driver's license and became the designated chauffeur for his sister and Lily, a responsibility he took with a touching seriousness. He was a good kid, a good man in the making, and I was proud to have him in my life. One day, I received a certified letter in the mail. It was from a law firm I didn't recognize. My heart skipped a beat, a flicker of old anxiety surfacing. I opened it to find that Mark's father had passed away, and I was named in the will. I was stunned. I had not been close with my former father-in-law, a quiet, distant man who had always seemed to be in Mark's shadow. The letter stated that he had left a small inheritance, not to Mark, but directly to Josh and Emily. And then there was a separate clause. He had also left a sum of money to Lily. It was not a huge amount, but it was significant. Enclosed was a handwritten note from the lawyer explaining the situation. Mr. Robinson was very distressed by his son's actions. The note read, "He told me he wanted to, in his own small way, right a wrong. He said, every child in a family deserves to be treated like family. He wanted to ensure Lily knew she was valued." I sat there holding the letter, tears streaming down my face. This quiet, unassuming man had seen the injustice. From afar, he had understood the cruelty of that theme park ticket, and he had made a final, posthumous gesture to correct it. It was a powerful act of validation from the most unexpected of sources. It was proof that the truth had a way of coming out, that decency could prevail even in the face of ugliness. Mark, I later learned, was furious. He had been largely written out of the will, receiving only a token amount. He contested it, of course, claiming his father was not of sound mind. But the will was ironclad. His father had made his intentions crystal clear. It was yet another public humiliation for Mark, another consequence of the choices he had made. He had not only alienated his wife and children, but his own father as well. The inheritance was a turning point. We put the money for Josh and Emily into trust funds for their college education. For Lily, I opened a special savings account, her adventure fund. "This is for you," I explained to her, showing her the bank statement. "For you to see the world, to have amazing experiences, to do whatever you dream of." Her eyes lit up. "Can we go back to the unicorn park?" she asked. I laughed. "We can go anywhere you want, sweetie. The world is yours." And so we did. We took trips. We went to the beach, to the mountains, to big cities. We created a tapestry of new, happy memories, each one weaving over the old, painful ones until they were nothing but a faint, distant pattern. One day, a few years after the divorce, I was at a coffee shop when I saw him. Mark. He was sitting alone at a table, staring into a cup. He looked older than his years. His face was etched with lines of bitterness, his shoulders slumped in defeat. He didn't see me. I could have just walked away, but something compelled me to stop. I walked over to his table. "Hello, Mark," I said. He looked up, startled. His eyes, once so full of arrogance, were now dull and empty. "Sarah," he said, his voice a hoarse whisper. "How are you?" I asked. It was not a question born of concern, but of a detached curiosity. I truly wanted to know what had become of the man who had tried to destroy me. He gave a short, bitter laugh. "How do you think I am? You took everything from me." I just looked at him. The victim narrative was so ingrained in him, he would probably believe it until the day he died. "I didn't take anything from you, Mark," I said, my voice calm and even. "You gave it all away. You had a choice every step of the way. You chose to lie. You chose to steal. You chose to be cruel to a child. These are the consequences of your choices." He had no reply. He just stared at me, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. "I want you to know," I continued, "that despite everything you did, your children are wonderful. They are kind and compassionate and resilient. They are good people. And Lily, she's thriving. She's happy and confident, and she knows she is loved." I paused, letting the words sink in. "You tried to break us, Mark, but you only made us stronger. I hope one day you find some peace. But that's your choice to make, not mine." I turned and walked away, leaving him sitting there in the ruins of the life he had demolished. I never saw him again after that. I heard bits and pieces about him from the kids. He moved to another state, taking a lesser job. He remarried, then divorced again. He was a man adrift, forever chasing a happiness he had already possessed and thrown away. My life, on the other hand, was full. It was not a fairy tale. It was real, and sometimes it was hard. But it was ours. It was a life built on a foundation of truth, resilience, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her daughter. Years later, when Lily was getting ready to go off to college, we were packing up her room. We found the giant stuffed unicorn, now a little worn, a little faded, but still a beloved treasure. "Remember the day we got him?" Lily asked, a nostalgic smile on her face. "I remember every second of it," I said. "That was the day everything changed, wasn't it?" she said, her voice thoughtful. She was old enough now to understand the whole story, the context behind that trip. "Yes," I said. "It was." "You were so brave, Mom," she said, turning to look at me, her eyes shining with admiration. "You fought for us." I pulled her into a hug, my heart overflowing with love for this incredible young woman she had become. "I would do it all again, in a heartbeat," I whispered into her hair. "For you? I would burn the world down." And in that moment, I knew that every tear, every struggle, every sleepless night had been worth it. The theme park ticket had been a symbol of exclusion, a weapon meant to wound. But we had transformed it. We had turned it into a symbol of our independence, a testament to our strength. It was the catalyst that had set us free. It was the price of admission to a better, brighter, more beautiful life. A life that was, finally and completely, our own.